In today's video, we're going to go through the process you should be taking in determining whether or not you should be converting your super into cash. To be clear, I'm not saying to take your money out of super, we're simply looking at changing your super investment option to the cash option. G'day, I'm Chris Strano, the founder of SUPERGUY, the place where Australians go to maximise their super and build their own retirement plan. If you're new here, make sure that you click the subscribe button and all of the links related to this video. You can find the links in the description below. If you get value in this video, make sure you give it the thumbs up. It takes 2 seconds and it lets me know that you like the video and it motivates me to make more. Remember, this is general information only and you should consider whether it's appropriate to your personal needs and circumstances before acting on it. Alright, let's get started. This video is about whether you should be investing your super into cash or term deposits instead of, the other options available, such as shares and property, the balanced option, or whatever your super fund offers, or switching from what you're currently invested in into cash. And I think this is a very valid question, and it's a very important question. But I also think a lot of people ask this question at the wrong time, and arguably shouldn't be asking at all. Now, this video isn't related to any particular event or moment in time. It's based more on the thought process you should be taking based on your investment approaches, investment strategy and philosophies and so on. Because if you're asking this question now, should I change my super to cash? I can promise you it has been asked by plenty of people before under plenty of different circumstances, but the answer will always be the same. So I guess maybe there's 3 situations that most people ask this question. Either 1, when the market's been going up and up and up and up and a market correction is becoming inevitable. 2, the second time is at the early stages of an event that looks like it could have a major impact on the market. So some examples would be maybe in the first few weeks of the 2001 tech wreck, or the first few months of the GFC, or the first few weeks of the COVID-19 epidemic. Maybe the market's fallen 5 or 10% and you're concerned it might fall further and you're wondering if you should make the switch to cash. And 3, the third time that people ask if they should convert to cash is right at the worst time, when the markets have experienced the full effects of a market crash. The market's already fallen, say, 40% and you're concerned that you're going to lose all of your money, so you want to salvage what's left. So A, B, and C, before the correction, early stages of a correction, and after a full crash. Now, there is some merit in the first case, where the market's been going up and up and up, and it's due for a correction. But the problem with this strategy is that the market could continue running for another 2 or 3 years, and you miss out on further gains. Also, and more importantly, you want to have a strategy of when you will reinvest if you do decide to transfer your super to cash. And this is something that many people don't consider. What's your re-entry plan? Okay, the second situation also has some merit. You've cop a bit of a loss on the chin and you want to save further disaster if the market continues to fall. Again, the issue with this is that what if you've overanalyzed a potential issue that turned out to be, nothing but a little blip? You've converted your full super balance to cash and the markets just continue up on their merry way. Now what do you do? And the third option is just disastrous, waiting until your balance has dropped 30-40% and then switching to cash to avoid losing more, when, in reality, you've probably already copped the worst of it. And that's assuming that you've got a well-diversified portfolio of quality assets. If you've got all your money in, say, one investment or speculative companies, then, I don't know, maybe losing all your money is a possibility, but that's your call. So I guess if you're seriously considering switching your super and investing in cash, there's 2 questions that you need to ask yourself. Question 1, if I do switch my super to cash, at what precise point do I intend on reinvesting it? This is important because if you have no answer to this question, you risk what we call paralysis by analysis, whereby you'll, overanalyze when to reinvest and you'll constantly find reasons why you shouldn't reinvest because, it's doom and gloom in the media and everyone's losing money. And before you know it, next thing you know, markets have recovered and you're left behind on the sidelines because emotions can run high during a crash. So before you implement a transfer into cash, you need to have that exit strategy and a re-entry strategy prior to starting or prior to implementing that strategy. The second question you need to ask yourself is, what will I do if I guessed wrong and the markets didn't correct or fall or crash, and instead, the markets just continued upwards indefinitely, and the supposedly low prices that you sold at are never seen again? Does that mean that you remain in cash for the next 30 or 40 years? How would you feel about having to swallow your pride and buying back in when prices are 10% higher because you got it wrong? Now, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen in any circumstances, but it's really just food for thought. What happens if what you expected doesn't eventuate? Because there's a lot of things to consider, and there's a lot of risks of holding your super in cash or switching your super to cash. Now, have you noticed how I've been referring to markets crashing or markets correcting? And when I say this, you're probably presuming that I'm talking about the stock market, right? But which stock market? You see, many countries have stock markets that move somewhat independently of each other. Plus, there's other type of markets that your super would be invested in, like property markets, fixed interest or bond markets. And these markets also move independently of each other. Yes, it's true, globalization has created a higher correlation between markets, but a crash in the Australian share market of, say, 40% does not necessarily translate to your super balance dropping by 40%. Unless, of course, all of your super's invested in Australian shares, which for most people, it's not the case. So to give you an example, a typical balanced fund will have, say, 25% in Australian shares, 25% in international, maybe 10 to 15% in property, and the rest in cash and fixed interest. So this type of portfolio might only fall around 20% during a share market crash. If you have an even more conservative portfolio with only, say, 20 to 30% invested in shares, your super balance might only fall by 10% during a stock market crash. And this is really, really important to understand, because generally establishing a solid long-term diversified investment strategy will usually be better than trying to guess, when investment markets will or won't crash and how it's going to affect your balance and when you should retime your reinvestment. Because for the average person, trying to time the investment markets is just gambling. In fact, most professional, educated fund managers who spend every single day of their lives trying to predict market movements can't get it right. So, with all due respect, why are you different? Is it just a hunch? I don't know, maybe it's a good hunch. Maybe you've experienced and been through similar events in the past. But do you really want to risk your retirement outcome on a hunch? I only say this because I've seen dozens of retirees make extremely poor decisions with their super savings, and then they're forced to live with the regret of that for the rest of their lives. Not to mention having to face their spouse or partner who wasn't really involved in the family finances, but now they're stuck living a 2.5-star retirement because their spouse decided to play stockbroker for a few months. I know how harsh this sounds, but I can promise you I've seen it plenty of times, and it's not really worth the outcome. Yeah, of course, you might guess right, and you might add another 50 grand to your super balance, and you look like a hero. But you should also consider what happens if you get it wrong. What happens if what you expected doesn't eventuate? Now, if you're still adamant that you want to sell your super investments and allocate them to cash, what you should probably consider is a dollar cost averaging strategy. So dollar cost averaging out and then back in. For example, you could sell 1/6 of your portfolio to cash each month for the next 6 months, and then wait on the sidelines for like 12 months, and then reinvest 1/6 of your balance back into your portfolio each month for 6 months. The timeframes of this strategy can be as long or as short as you like, but what it can do is significantly reduce market timing risk, which is basically the risk of making the decision to buy or sell your portfolio at the wrong time. So what's another solution? Look, I don't completely disagree with making tactical changes like this to a portfolio. I don't think it's necessary. And to be honest, the average person is going to get it wrong many more times than they get it right. So personally, I believe in a more long-term outlook and banking on average returns and forgetting about what happens in the interim. Investing can be as simple or as complex as you like. Personally, I like it simple. Simple works. Simple is predictable, simple causes less stress, less fees, and simple saves a hell of a lot of time. Personally, I have not changed the asset allocation of my super for over 15 years, and I consider myself reasonably educated in investment markets, but I don't think that I can time the market, so I let it roll. Okay, let's have a look at the 5 main investment options offered by pretty much every super fund in Australia. They might have slightly different names and slightly different allocations, but let's keep things really basic for now. So the 5 main investment options that you might choose from, which is basically available through any super fund, is conservative, moderate, balanced, growth, and high growth. Now, conceptually, these numbers are not real returns, but just to get the point across, conceptually, over a period of 10 years, a conservative portfolio might earn an average return of, say, 4% per annum. A moderate portfolio, 5% per annum. A balanced portfolio, 6% per annum. A growth portfolio, 7%. And a high growth, 8% per annum. Okay, so these numbers might not be accurate, but a portfolio with higher exposure to property and shares such as growth will usually provide a higher return over the long term than a portfolio with lower exposure to shares and property such as moderate. However, a growth portfolio will have a much bigger swings. Okay, so it will cause your balance to drop more during a crash and rise more during a bull market. And the level of risk of each investment option, we can really interpret this as the risk the portfolio won't produce the expected return over the short term, but it'll still have a reasonable probability of achieving it over the long term. Now, what's really important to grasp is that these portfolios will likely continue to produce similar average long-term returns to what they have done in the past, despite wars, recessions, terrorist attacks, tech wrecks, SARS and GFCs, and whatever else you want to throw at the global economy. The average long-term returns will still continue on. They always have, and they probably will continue. These significant events are nothing more than a blip on the investment markets. So rather than fart ass around with making tactical changes to your portfolio every 6 months or deciding whether or not to sell down your portfolio into cash and term deposits, why not just figure out what return you need to meet your retirement objectives and make sure that you're comfortable with that level of risk and invest in that portfolio, and then just set and forget and enjoy life, rather than risking your retirement with, a gut instinct or based on something you read in the paper that might have got your heart fluttering and turned you into a Warren Buffett wannabe. For instance, if your goal is to retire at age 64 with an income of $60,000 each year plus, a $10,000 holiday each year, and to achieve that you need an average return of 5% per annum based on how much you have in super, then why not just chuck all your super into the moderate option, as an example, and sit back and enjoy retirement? Because almost any professional in the financial or funds management industry will tell you that this set and forget style investment method is a much better option than the average punter trying to get a better return by attempting to time the market movements. And think about it. If your ultimate goal is to retire at a certain age so that you can spend more of your days with family and friends and enjoying your hobbies and going on travel adventures and so on, do you really want to gamble with everything that you've worked for the past 30 years? Because in reality, it's more likely going to jeopardize your retirement dreams rather than improve them. Well, there you go. I hope this video has given you an investment approach to think about. If you learned something new from this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. If you want more exclusive superannuation tips, head over to superguy.com.au and sign up to my newsletter for free. That's where I share my best content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.